Hello and welcome back to Urza's AI Monthly Reviews. It's me, DarcyBits. It's a new month, and I'm in a new place. So you might hear some weird sounds. You might hear a train. You might hear a clock tower go off. It's gonna be something, but we want to do this in one take because we've got a lot of cards to get through this month. So, I probably won't be getting too much into discussion. I'm just gonna read and go because we got a lot of ground to cover. First, we have Endless Plague, a 3-mana black sorcery. Each player sacrifices a creature. For each creature sacrificed this way, create a 5/5 black demon creature token with flying. That seems super good. Holy crap. Love it. Blow up all your stuff, get a bunch of my stuff, also blow up one of my stuff, and get a bigger one of my stuff. Awesome. I've actually been playing that Voracious Fellbeast, which is each opponent sacrifices a creature, you make a food for each creature sacrificed this way, and that's even good. And this is, like, way cheaper. Of course it's good. What am I talking about? It's some busted card. Oh no, I got some background noise. My chair's making noise. Let's move on. No matter what the task, the rest of the pack will follow you to the grave. Quayat, Urza's Graveyard Alchemist. Pandora's Suitcase is a 3-mana colorless artifact. Exile Pandora's Suitcase, then reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card. Put the card on the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Pandora's Suitcase returns to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. That's okay. Yeah, no, that works. Okay. Huh. So you tap it, you do the thing, but it gets exiled. Wait, no, it got exiled in the process. It can be returned from exile, though. So yeah, no, but it returns to the battlefield on... Yeah, okay. So it, like, slow flickers itself. Exile, do a thing, put it onto the battlefield. This will return from exile. It doesn't say from exile, but that's what it means, I guess, to the battlefield. So it's kind of irrelevant. It's just really hard to actually interact with, I guess, because it's not sitting on the board during your opponent's turn. Your opponents have to, like, have instant speed interaction. Huh. All right. Part curiosity, part catastrophe, all packed into one unassuming luggage. Luggage. Yeah, there's a series of Pandora's cards that were made over the month. Pandora's Cataclysmic Cache is a 4-mana black artifact. Tap, sacrifice Pandora's Cataclysmic Cache. Each opponent loses half their life rounded up. You gain life equal to the life lost this way. Then discard your hand and draw 7 cards. Holy crap. Alright, yeah, sure. Everyone loses half their life, you gain life, and then you get a wheel effect. You get to lose your hand to just draw 7. Amazing. From the box sprung forth all the evils of the world, countered only by the faint glimmer of hope left within. Luffy Walking Paradox is a 3-mana red and blue legendary creature human pirate. It has level up. Holy crap. The AI made level up. To reiterate, for those who are not aware, cards that look like this were made by a different AI than Urza's AI, but they were shared on the same Discord, so they are part of this discussion and showcasing. Level up, 3 mana, generic blue and red. From levels 1 to 4, it is a first strike, haste 3/3. It starts as a 1/1. I don't know if I mentioned that or not. If you make it all the way to level 5, it is double strike. It no longer has haste, which is probably fine. Unless you're gonna go all the way to level 5 in one turn. Not that big a deal. Or do you think it's showing these as additive? I don't know enough about level up as a mechanic. For those who don't know, level up is a mechanic where you spend the mana and you put a level counter on it, or an experience counter or something. And based on the number of counters on it, it has a different stat line and abilities. So, wait a minute. Level 9 is showing us mana. That's funny. Usually they don't go this high, is my understanding. Untap all creatures you control. They gain double strike, trample, hexproof, menace, and haste until end of turn. That is a lot, but like you're not getting to level 9. That's so much mana. I don't care who you are. I will surpass you. Luffy, Walking Paradox. Alright, moving on. Thundershock Elemental is a 3 mana red creature elemental. When Thundershock Elemental enters the battlefield, deal 3 damage to target creature or player. Whenever an opponent casts an instant or sorcery spell, Thundershock Elemental deals 2 damage to that player. So how does this work? ETB, lightning bolt something. When an opponent casts an instant or a sorcery spell, it deals 2 to that player. Okay. That's pretty scary. How much does it cost? It costs 3, and it's a 2/2. Yep, pretty good. So this border you're seeing here, these are cleaned up cards by, you can see actually here at the bottom, Sael, one of the community members on the Urza Discord. They've actually recently sort of started working with the Discord admins and revamping the Discord, so it's actually looking really, really cool and really, really different if you want to check out the Urza Discord now. But that is how mostly happened at the end of the month and isn't really going to impact this review. But going forward, the Discord's looking a lot different. I highly recommend checking it out. And Sile is one of the sort of spearheaders of that thing. I think they're actually doing most of it. I'm saying it. Anyway, but yes, these sort of borders you'll see every once in a while, and those are cleaned up cards that have like text from AI generated stuff, but then the borders they made and AI art and all that stuff. Its presence leaves a charge in the air, electrifying both its allies and enemies. Shadow of Malediction is a 2-mana black creature spirit. It is a 2/2 with when Shadow of Malediction enters the battlefield, sacrifice any number of non-basic lands. Interesting. For each land sacrificed this way, put a torture counter on target creature. For black, remove a torture counter from a creature. That creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn. That is brutal. Holy crap. So you have to spend your non-basic lands, which is already just brutal. And then all you're getting is the ability to spend mana to give something -2 later. I think this is bad. Am I wrong? I don't know. Renamon's Evolution. Who did this? Alright. Is a 3-mana Fox Spirit. It's green, it's a 2/2, and it also is level up. So 2 mana this time to level up. Levels 1 to 2, it is a 4/4. Levels 3 to 4, it is a 5/5. Levels 5 plus, it is a 15/15 with trample protection from colored spells. When Renamon's Evolution reaches level 5, if it has not been dealt damage this turn, it fights target creature and opponent controls. That is a really cool level up design, actually. Like, it's so much mana, right? Like, you have to play the thing in the first place. How much was it? 3 mana? It's a 3 mana 2/2. And then you have to spend 2 mana per level. So that's another 10 mana to get to level 5. But you get yourself a 15/15 that you paid in installments, which is quite powerful, right? Having 12 mana is hard, but having 2 mana every turn for 5 turns, not so hard. And you can, of course, level it up multiple times in the same turn. So you can say, I play this on turn 3. On turn 4, it goes to level 2. On turn 5, it goes to level 4. And then on turn 6, it's a 15/15 trample protection from colored spells. And while that doesn't seem so bad, you're not developing any other threats during that time, and it's a lot of time for your opponents to answer this thing before it becomes a 15/15. And you've already invested, 8 mana into it. So, I don't know, level up's a weird mechanic, but this is kind of a cool design of, just a little bit better, just a little bit better, just a little bit better. and then it's huge. It reminds me of like Planeswalkers, right? Like the ultimate on a Planeswalker, you don't expect to ever pull off. But if you can, that's really cool, and hopefully they got some value along the way. This actually might be a good design for level up. Level up wasn't used too much, so like, I don't think there's a card that functions this way. If all the designs for level up were similar to this, when they like do it next, if they ever do it again, I think that'd be a really cool idea. Like actually treating them like an ultimate, but for a creature. And yeah, the like top level versions of level ups tend to be pretty decent, but like nothing that jumps from a 5/5 to a 15/15 gains trample and protection. Like that's a lot of stuff, and has like a pop in effect. Apologies for the coughs. From Cubinmon to Taimon and then Sakiyamon, the path to perfection is basked in spiritual light. Okay, sure, why not? Shalai, Voice of Domination, is a 4-mana, green and white, legendary creature, angel. It is a 3/4 with flying. Creatures you control have hexproof. For 5 mana, choose a creature you control. It gains indestructible until end of turn. In the hearts of all are cherished the seeds of renewed. I don't understand that, but that's okay. Cool. So, flying 3/4 for 4 mana. That's already fine. Creatures you control have hexproof. This is a creature, so it itself has hexproof. That's already kind of busted. And then you can spend 5 mana to give something indestructible. Interestingly, it is not target creature you control gains indestructible. It is choose a creature you control. It gains indestructible. I don't know why it's worded that way, but cool. Cool. Yeah, cool. Sora, Keeper of Hearts. Okay. Alright, sure. Is a 4-mana, white and blue, legendary creature, human knight, with level up. Okay, so I think all of these last ones were sort of made in the same batch, which is cool. It's cool seeing the, like, trends of, like, someone's like, I had an idea, and I made, like, 5 cards with that concept. Yeah, those can be fun. I completely forgot. This is a 4-mana, 1/1, blue and white human knight with level up. For 3 mana, they can level up. Between levels 1 to 2... Wait, why does it have a mana in the level up section? So level up always costs the same amount, no matter what level you're at. I think. The templating of this is wrong. I'm going to ignore it. 3 mana level up. Between levels 1 and 2, it's a 3/3 flyer. That's pretty good, honestly. It means you play, 4 for a 1/1, which is really bad, but then you spend another 3 mana, and it becomes a 3/3 flyer, which means you've spent, like, a lot of mana, actually, for it to be a 3/3. That's too much. Anyway. Levels 3 to 4. 6... I'm ignoring that part. 4/4 flyer has first strike. Yeah, so it's supposed to repeat the, like, keywords and stuff. I was pretty sure. I guess I'm not confirming that, but I'm pretty sure that's right. And then if you make it to level 5, it is a 5/5 flying first strike indestructible. When Sora, Keeper of Hearts is at level 5, you may exile it and any number of other non-land permanents. For each permanent exiled this way, create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying. That's actually really cool. So it's weird that it's worded at level 5. It should mean, like, becomes level 5 or something. But you can choose to either exile it, or you can not. So either you can have this 5/5 flying first strike indestructible that you've earned by leveling it up so much, or you can do this big one-time effect. That's like a really cool idea. Like, this card is not good or well made, but it has this concept that I'm like, actually that's a cool way of doing, that's a cool, like, use case of level up. I really like this, like, gain a little bit incremental value, and then it explodes and does this really powerful effect. That's really cool. Just clears the board and gives you a bunch of 4/4s. That's like a brutally strong effect. And it can be a strong effect because it is this kind of hard thing to do. I think that'd be fun. I kind of want to see level up now. I kind of want to see them do level up again. My friends are my power, and I'm theirs. Sure, Sora. Alright, Sylvan Bandmaster is a 4-mana a 4-mana green planeswalker, Sylvan. Oh, okay, sure. It has no starting loyalty, which we've seen before. AI trying to make planeswalkers kind of mess it up often. Uh, but it is no starting loyalty, so it doesn't actually function. But let's see what it would have done. +1, put a 1/1 green elf creature token with banding onto the battlefield. That's pretty good. Any planeswalker that can sort of protect itself by creating a blocker generally is a pretty good planeswalker to start with. And the fact that it has banding is funny but not relevant, and I'm into things that are funny but not relevant. -2, gain control of up to 1 target creature with banding. Okay, until end of turn. Untap that creature, it gains haste. So that is useless, because nobody plays creatures with banding, unless you had ways of giving something banding. I kind of want to see that now. Like, a creature or a planeswalker, I guess, that its thing is it hands out banding. It, like, gives things banding, and then it can interact with your opponent's creatures that have banding. Kind of like how you'll see, like, Island Walk, and then things that turn, like, lands into islands. You know, stuff like that. So that to guarantee that it turns on. I think that's very funny. That's a very funny thing. But handing out banding, technically, it would be an upside for the thing that you gave it to, but it's so negligibly relevant that you could hand it out pretty efficiently and then interact with it I don't know, I think that could be kind of cool. Also, banding is kind of like a pet concept for me. I really wanted to make a banding commander deck that used Enrage to take advantage of it. I'm not getting into it right now. I never finished that deck. I should finish it. I should finish that deck. Anyway, -7, you get an emblem with creatures you control have banding. And this creature gets +1/+1 for each other creature you control with banding. So, you know, this emblem has this creature gets +1/+1 for each other. It's not you get an emblem with creatures you control have banding and this creature. Oh, maybe it is. Huh. So we see the quote opens and then it doesn't close. And then it opens again. And then it closes. Creatures you control have banding, and this creature gets +1/+1. Like, if this little quote mark wasn't here, then that would mean... I guess we should interpret it that way anyway, because the alternative doesn't make any sense. At that point, cool. It doesn't really matter that it's each other creature you control with banding. That's just +1/+1 for each other creature you control at that point. Because all your creatures have banding. Which is pretty cool. That's pretty scary stuff. With the forest's wisdom, he rallies the creatures of the wild to his banner. Tolarian Academy. That's a real card. Tolarian Academy is a legendary land. Tolarian Academy enters the battlefield tapped. You can tap it to add blue for each artifact you control. I don't actually know what Tolarian Academy does, but that sounds like right. That's like the kind of thing Tolarian Academy would do. Yeah. The most esteemed academy on Dominaria. Its lore is legendary. That's true. Shifting Strange is a 2-mana, colorless artifact creature Strange. It is a 2/2 for a generic mana. Shifting Strange becomes a color of your choice until end of turn. Interesting. At the beginning of each end step, Shifting Strange becomes colorless and has its converted mana cost, weird, become equal to the number of creatures and artifacts you have in play. I have never seen a card that changes its mana value. I don't know if that's something that you can do, but like, I don't know, Magic keeps adding new rules all the time, so like, why not? This is a weird card. But like, mana value matters sometimes. This could be really cool, actually. 2 mana, and then it becomes the mana value of the number of creatures and artifacts you have in play, like you control. So, depending on how much stuff you have on the battlefield, it could, like, suddenly be a very high mana value, and then you could, like, I don't know, sacrifice it to an effect that creates 1/1 equal to its mana value or something, and then you play another Shifting Strange, and now that thing is like a 10 mana value, and you do it again. This is weird, but has like some use case. I guess, I mean, it's strange. It's a strange. Speaking of being strange, weird is a creature type, strange is not a creature type, which is funny. Weird being, there is a type of like elemental creature called a weird. Not just like, things weird. So, anyway, it adapts to the whims of its environment, constantly altering its form and essence. That's a cool card. Urza's Time Vault is a 4-mana colorless legendary artifact. Oops. Urza's Time Vault enters the battlefield tapped. Tap, skip your next turn. If Urza's Time Vault would be untapped during your untap step, instead you may choose not to untap it. If you do, take an extra turn after this one. If I do untap it or do not untap. I assume if I do not untap it, like I may choose to not untap it. If I do choose to not untap it, I take an extra turn. So, interesting. It enters tapped. Then I go to my next turn. Then I untap it. Then I tap it. I skip my next turn. And then, if it would be untapped during my untap step, I may choose not to untap it. Okay, so my understanding of this card, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that it enters tapped, then the following turn it will untap on its own, and I may tap it. At which point, I lose my next turn, so we played it, we untapped with it, for that's one turn passing, and now we're skipping our next turn. At that point, it'll untap, or it won't untap. I can start saying, I will no longer have this untap for the rest of the game. It doesn't have a timing restriction on if this would be untapped. Like, that's part of the activated ability of tapping it. And then I may take an extra turn. And I may do that. I can just take infinite extra turns after that point. So it basically says 4 mana. Then your opponent goes. Then you could tap it to skip your next turn. Then your opponent goes. Then your opponent goes again because you skipped your next turn. And then you take infinite turns. So it's like a 3-turn clock on your opponent. It's like, you know what? If you can't beat me in 3 turns, you lose the game. That's my understanding of this card. Am I wrong? Is that what this card says? Time is a river, and I have the power to dam it or redirect its flow. I gotta pick up the pace. Venser the Blinkmaster is a 5-mana blue legendary planeswalker Venser. Cool. +1. Exile. Oh, I didn't see. What's the starting loyalty? 5. Hey! Nice. It actually says. Cool. +1. Exile target permanent you control. Return it to the battlefield under your control at the beginning of the next end step. Cool. So this is a flicker or a blink, which is appropriate to the name, but it's a slow blink. I like a slow blink. It lets you dodge, like, certain effects. Like, you could blink something with this, and then do a board wipe, and then it won't hit the thing you blinked, because it won't come back to the end step. Since it's a loyalty ability, it's sorcery speed, and you couldn't use it to protect your stuff against an opponent's board wipe, but you can use it to protect your stuff against your own board wipe. So, that could be fun. -2, exile target permanent you don't control. It's just, okay, yeah, great. And -7, you get an emblem with, whenever you cast a spell, exile target permanent. That is a hilarious ultimate, and it starts at 5. So you play this, you +1 it. If it doesn't take any damage, you +1 it again. If it doesn't take any damage, you can then -7 it to just exile things every time you cast a spell. Notably, it's not a May ability. You must exile target permanent whenever you cast a spell, which is cool. That's technically a drawback, except it doesn't say non-land permanent, so you could just start exiling your opponent's lands. So that's fun. I never leave anything permanently, except my mark. Whatever that means. Tatsuo, the Heavenly Beast, is a 7 mana, green and white, legendary creature, Beast Spirit. It is a 7/5 with... Oops. Ugh. It is a 7/5 with flying, trample, Bushido 3, which means when this is blocked, when this blocks or becomes blocked, it gets +3/+3 until end of turn. Cool. That's it. I don't know why I was like, my brain thought there should be more to read there. Yeah, so 7 mana, 7/5, flying, trample. If this ever gets blocked or blocks something, it temporarily is a 10/8. I mean, that's a lot of stats, and it has trample and flying, which is pretty strong. Especially, like, trample Bushido is interesting, because it's like, if you block me, you better block, like, an extra 3? Because you can't just Actually, So Bushido's kind of this interesting thing in that, like, if you chump block it, you don't really care that you're getting the +3 because it's chump blocked. But putting Bushido on trample is kind of interesting. There's something interesting there, actually. Born of the essence of the land and the sky, Tatsuo is an embodiment of nature's fury and majesty. Gideon, Hero of Battle, is a 3-mana red legendary creature, human warrior. They are a 2/2 with 3 mana, 2 generic and 1 red. Create a 2/2 red dragon creature token with flying, named Gideon, Hero of Battle, Gideon and Gideon. What? I mean, just looking at this raw stats-wise, this is very strong. It only costs 3 to get this 2/2 into play, and then you can send 3 every turn to make another 2/2. Okay, I guess, yeah, it's their own mana cost to make another one of them, kind of. It's not actually a copy of this, because of the Wizard Legend rule itself, but, like, interesting, sure. That's funny. Gideon rose from the first plains of Midgard, standing on the crest of a titan to fight against evil. Volcanic Explosion, in all lowercase, is a 1-mana red sorcery. Volcanic Explosion deals 1 damage to any target. That's it. That's it. Okay, cool. Gatherers of the Undercity give a spitting rod as a sign of their trust. All Raw Tarian, dang it, Cosmos Emperor is a probably 4 mana. It's cut off, so it's hard to say. 4 mana, white and blue, legendary human artificer. It is a 7/7 with at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 2 or more artifacts, you win the game. That is very few. If this is 5, this is very cheap. But if it's like 3 and Wooburg or something, then that's 8 mana for a 7/7 that then wins you the game if you untap with it while controlling 2 artifacts, which you probably did by the time you cast this. So, cool, great. But yeah, if it's only 5, that's nothing. If it's 8, maybe it's something. The art and science of artifice is in the details. That makes sense. Not a mirror. Okay, so I need to explain this one. There was a bunch of, like, mirror cards being made on the Discord, and so when I collected images for this, I didn't, like, read all of the cards, but I did skim some of them, especially the, like, conversations where there was, like, 10 cards being made of the same stat line, and I was like, I don't need to make all of these mirror things. But basically, they were making mirrors, and they were, like, not mirrors. So someone made not a mirror. Anyway, 4 mana for a green 2/2 elf. When not a mirror enters the battlefield, each opponent mills 5 cards. To mill a card, a player puts the top card of the library into the middle graveyard. That's true. Creatures your opponents control lose first strike and can't attack you. Huh. Like, while this is on the field, they don't have first strike. Lose implies it's like an effect that's happening now. With like an end time. So like ETB, they lose first strike. And that is true, it lasts indefinitely, but any new creatures wouldn't have that effect. But since this is a passive effect on a creature, I think it is just like they don't have it while this is in play. Scary. He cuts an elven path to her destination. Blech. Root Extraction is a 3-mana green sorcery. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Then that creature gets trample and gets +X/+0, where X is the number of +1/+1 counters on it. I like this. That is 1 counter, then gets +1/+1/+0, so it's getting +2, +1, and trample for 3 mana. That's not bad. That's fine. But then if it has more counters already on it, it's getting a bigger and bigger boost. I think that's fun. I think that's a fun card. It is sorcery speed, so you can't just like surprise trample or anything, but you know. It can suck the vital essence out of an unwary victim. I wanted to say any unwary victim, but that's not, no. Iron Hellkite is a 3-mana green dragon. It has flying. It is a 3/2. And it says, when Iron Hellkite enters the battlefield, draw a card. Spells your opponent's cast that target Iron Hellkite cost 2 more to cast. And then that's flavor text. Okay, sorry, I thought there was another line there, but that's just flavor text. Yeah, so how much does it cost? 3. 3 for a 3/2 with flying, already good. Then also you draw a card. Then also it has like ward 2 effectively, right? It's only spells your opponent's cast that target Iron Hellkite. Cool. Cool. He keeps an eye on every goblin. He even goes so far as to land his nest on a level 20 building and peek inside. Level 20 building? Wow. Glint Sleeve Thugroot is a 5-mana green 3/3 plant mutant. Okay. Whenever Glint Sleeve Thugroot becomes blocked by a creature, Glint Sleeve Thugroot deals 1 damage to that creature. Cool, so when blocking they effectively have 1 extra power, is kind of how that amounts to a lot of the time. The spines grow around the waist, wrists, and ankles of their victims, offering them no protection against the violent tide. Limon, King of Dogs, and the mana symbol looks like it kind of bugged out a bit. I'm not entirely sure what happened there. I'm going to say that's just 3 mana, and yeah. It's a legendary creature dog. It is a 3-mana 3/3 with vigilance and trample. Whenever Limon, King of the Dogs, attacks, you may create a 3/3 black zombie dog creature token with Defender. Ooh, I kind of like that. I was like, that's a lot of bodies that you can put on the field real fast, but they're just defenders. Yeah, I kind of like that. Very strong body, vigilance, trample, brar, every time it attacks, make another 3/3, but those 3/3s can't attack. They're just here to, like, I don't know, protect the dog. They don't really protect the dog, but you know what I'm saying. His courage alone should inspire fear. His love alone should inspire respect. Key to the City is a 6-mana colorless artifact. I believe that is a real card. But what does this version do? Assemble your resources, your agents, your preparations. If the Mobius loop were true, your efforts would pay off immediately. Instead, time will be required for success. In that time, perhaps another mastermind will arise. Perhaps your next opponent will strike first. But at least your trap will be set, and your success will be certain. End card. I'm glad I got to read that. I didn't know that was coming. That's really funny. Oh, my throat. Flesh and Bone Golem is a 4-mana black 3/3 golem. 4-mana 3/3. Sacrifice a creature. Flesh and Bone Golem becomes a copy of that creature, except it's also a black zombie in addition to another type. Interesting. So I was thinking, ooh, free sack outlet. That's always good. But when this becomes a copy of the sacrificed creature, this will lose this ability. Oftentimes, copy effects will say, like, sacrifice a creature, this becomes a copy, except it also has this ability. You see that sometimes. Not always. So you always have to watch out for that when you look at a copy effect. Now, this is a free sack outlet in one turn, because you could stack the triggers. You could say, I'm going to sacrifice my 1/1. And then in response to that, I'm going to sacrifice another 1/1. And then in response to that, I'm going to sacrifice another 1/1. And you could do that to sacrifice your whole board if you wanted to. But as soon as you stop sacrificing things in response to the triggers, this will then rapid fire become each of those sacrificed things in sequence. So you sacrifice 5 things and it becomes one of them, and then the second one, and then the third one, and then the fourth one, and the fifth one. Magic's weird. Anyway, the fact that you can respond to your own triggers is maybe a problem. Maybe they just shouldn't have allowed you to do that in the game, honestly. Maybe only opponents should be able to respond to your stuff. I guess that becomes an issue with I do something and then you respond and then I respond to your response, but then I end up targeting my own thing. I don't know. What would Magic be like if you couldn't target your own stuff on the stack? I don't know. Maybe that'd be good. Maybe that'd be a good thing, actually. Anyway. A large and primitive construct, the golem has only been domesticated for a century. Okay. But even so, its construction remains labor-intensive, and the majority of the labor force is still occupied with food production. Mere Grunt, Mere God, is a 5-mana green legendary creature snake. Can't make a mirror actually be a mirror. It's a 3/3. It has partner with Mirror. When this creature enters the battlefield, target creature can't be blocked this turn. That's not what partner with means. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. That's a pretty good landfall payoff. I'm into that. From within the depths of Mirror's shadow, she hunts those that would keep the heart of Sheldor in peace. Cool. So if we assume that partner with Mirror actually means what partner means, which is when this enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a card named Mirror and put that card into your hand. You or someone on your team, because the partner with mechanic was actually designed for Battle Bond, where you have a partner, another player who's on your team. And oftentimes you would play one color, and the partner is a different color, and so you'd have different decks, which have the different partners. Anyway. If we assume that is the effect, then of course we need to know what Mirror does. Mirror is a 4-mana, colorless, legendary creature mirror. Actually a mirror, that's cool. It is a 3/3. When Mirror enters the battlefield, return a land you control to its owner's hand. So, I actually kind of like the idea of partner with that is unidirectional. It's kind of silly, because that means you have to draw them in the right order for it to be relevant. But, I don't know, I think that there's potential there. These days, we kind of think of partner with as just meaning partner. The commander mechanic, because it was ruled that it counts as partner for commander, but it actually meant a thing. Partner with meant you could search up the cards, and that's a cool effect. So you could have unidirectional partner. I guess you have cards that are when this does a thing, search your library for a card named, right? That one card that finds Heartseeker Bow. I can't remember what it's called. Yeah. So, I guess there's stuff similar to that. It doesn't need to be the partner with mechanic itself, but whatever. This is just bad. It enters the battlefield and returns a land to your hand. Woo! It didn't take the mirror long to discover that if they returned home, their mirror would stay behind. I don't know what that means. Voracious Crasis. Ooh, or Crassus. Crassus are like a weird mutants made by the Simic in Ravnica. They're normally blue-green. This is a 3-mana black and red human warrior. So that's fun. It's a 3/3 at the beginning of combat on your turn. If you control a commander, destroy all creatures. Huh. I kind of like this. Like, it's a very cheap... I guess the problem with this card is that this is a 3-mana sorcery speed Wrath if you already have your commander on the field, and you're like, ugh, I'm just going to wrap the board. Because you can play this and then move directly to combat. If this was, like, on your upkeep, this card would be really interesting. Because it's a very cheap Wrath, but it's very situational. This has to be on the board, and so does your commander, giving the entire, like, rest of the table time to respond, which could be kind of cool. I've talked before on videos about the Doom Caller in Hearthstone, which is this very, like, efficient board wipe, but it actually operates more as a deterrent. You say, don't play any creatures, they're going to die. And your opponents just don't play creatures and they do other stuff on their turn. And that can really, like, tempo swing the game. Like, give you some advantage just by delaying your opponent's plays. And it's a very cool effect. So having these, like, efficient board wipes that are not intended to be hitting anything, it's like suppressive fire in, like, actual war. You don't plan on hitting anybody with suppressive fire. You are simply firing rounds to control the movement of your opponent, saying, you don't ever go here, because we're firing a gun over here. You'll die if you go there. And that can let you control the battlefield, right? I don't know anything about real war. I don't know why I'm using it as a comparison point. Anyway, more things that are sort of like controlling the battlefield that are threats. I would love to see those. I love that kind of like finger on the button style play, right? I'm going to play this thing and I can spend 3 mana to blow up the board. If you kill it, I can't. But if I ever have 3 mana open, I can just do it in response. So be careful, right? I'm into that kind of stuff. The core was an unruly, voracious predator until a dragon and its riders come to her aid. It's Charizard! Charizard is a 2-mana green Charizard. Let's talk about Pokemon for a second. Of all the Pokemon, this one knows the most. Alright, cool. In Pokemon, they're all given like a weird like category, like how Pikachu is an electric mouse. Even though like a mouse isn't really a thing, right? Which I think is fine, right? Like, what's a mouse? Well, a mouse is anything that is in the mouse category of Pokemon, right? Like, that checks out. That makes sense. I don't have a problem with that at all. But I guess that means that, yes, in fact, you would have subtypes like mouse, right? Like, all of the mouse Pokemon would be a mouse-type creature if they were in Magic. But you could also go the other way. You could say, no. The only creatures in Pokemon are Pokemon themselves. So they would just be themselves, right? If we think about, like, unless you wanted to, like, clump some together, it would actually make more sense to be like, yeah, this is a Charizard. Its creature type is Charizard. You just wouldn't call the card Charizard. You'd call the card, like, Soaring Charizard or something, because it would be referring to a specific Charizard. Not, like, specific as in legendary. I'm going off the rails. This is not important. Charizard is a 2/1 that when it enters the battlefield destroys all other creatures. It's broken. Moving on. Charlie the Invisible One is a 5-mana green legendary creature human warrior. It's a 3/3 with partner with Glint Sleeve Thugroot. Oh, we already saw that. These must have come out in the wrong order. Glint Sleeve Thugroot. When this creature enters the battlefield, target player may put Glint Sleeve Thugroot into their hand from their library, then shuffle. Accurate. So, I don't remember what Glint Sleeve Thugroot did, but it did something, and you could find it with this card. My brother is the leader of the party. I can't tell him what to do. Sausage Party is a 3-mana squirrel. Sure, why not? Sausage Party is a 1/1 squirrel. When Sausage Party enters the battlefield, search your library for a card named Dizzy Yeti. Reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. So that is partner with Dizzy Yeti, in other words. Very cool. I'm into that. Except for it's only you. It's not like your ally if you were playing in that kind of game. Yeah. Outwardly aggressive and single-minded, the Yetis believe only in cause and effect. In reality, the creatures operate at cross purposes. Apologies, I should have muted, but I didn't get there in time. Key to Mass Extinction is a 4-mana green sorcery. Choose target permanent an opponent controls with mana value 3 or less. Destroy that permanent. You gain life equal to that permanent's mana value. You could have just said destroy target permanent an opponent controls with mana value 3 or less, but that's fine. Dizzy Yeti. Okay, we got there eventually. I wasn't sure if it was coming or not. Dizzy Yeti is a 4-mana 3/3 red creature. When Dizzy Yeti enters the battlefield, search your library for a card with a different name. You may reveal that card, put it under your hand, then shuffle. Wow. Huh. So it's just a tutor. It's just a universal tutor. So, wait. You have a squirrel that can tutor for a Yeti, and the Yeti can tutor for anything. Alright. Yeah. I mean, that checks out. I'm into that. Many beings confuse their frantic efforts to live with panic attacks. Many beings confuse their frantic efforts to live with panic attacks that feel like out-of-body experiences. Mirror Coat is a 3-mana white instant. Target creature gains first strike until end of turn. Mirror Coat can be cast as though it had flash. It'll certainly be fast. Cool. It already has instant. But thanks. Take it. Take it. Your silence is over. But be careful, or your best laid schemes may find you by surprise. Meridian Bard. Don't know what that means. Let's move on. Hyperlink Blocked. Great. Hyperlinked Blocked is a 3-mana blue enchantment aura. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature has hexproof and indestructible. It can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control. I kind of like this. That's just fun. You can imagine like a sort of, you know, hacker netrunner retheming of Magic, and it's just like spells or hacks, and then you've got like your ice, and then you like block the thing and it doesn't get through. I don't know why it's a hyperlink. Nah, don't worry about it. The Eldrazi shrieked in rage as the link was shattered. Pandora, the Box of All Evils. Oh, we got another Pandora. 2-mana black legendary artifact. You may pay 2 rather than pay the spell's mana. What? Rather than pay the mana cost for spells and abilities you cast. Got it. If you do copy that spell or ability, you may choose new targets for the copy. Oh, so I can cast any spell for 2 mana, and I get an extra copy of it. That's not a problem. From the Great Henge of Averon, a labyrinth of enchantments, came the evil known as Pandora. Yeah, alright. Arcane Transmogrifier is a 4-mana blue strange wizard. It is a 1/4 with when Arcane Transmogrifier enters the battlefield, choose 1. Target creature becomes the color of your choice until end of turn. Target creature becomes the type of your choice until end of turn. Target creature gains or loses all abilities until end of turn. Okay. So you're probably going to use this to make it gain or lose all abilities until end of turn, which is pretty good. I mean, dress downs are strong effects. This is not instant speed. If this had flash, this would be a lot stronger. But, cool. I'm into it. You could also use it to, like, I don't know, change something's color so you can get through with a protection card, I guess. I don't know. Tin Golem is a 5-mana colorless artifact creature golem. It is a 3/3. When Tin Golem dies, return to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control. Classic. Love a card like that. Oh, wait, I should probably read the flavor text, shouldn't I? In the Inquisitor's favor. Okay, moving on. Kervek Broodbringer is a 2-mana black spirit. It is a 2/1. Sacrifice a creature. Target player draws 2 cards. Oh! Oh, it's a free sack outlet that also draws you 2. That is a really good sack outlet. Yeah, okay. Even an accomplished physician might never heal the worst wound of all, that which kills your will to live. Wow, brutal. Marsh Fritillary is a 5-mana green insect. It is a 4/4 with flying. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice Marsh Fritillary unless you pay 2. So this is a 5-mana 4/4 with flying, upkeep 2. So, bad. She makes me laugh when I'm about to die. She's my girlfriend, really. Sergeant Ragnar, Cold Duty. I'm gonna just move on. Sacrarium the Living Cathedral is a land. Not a legendary land, just a land. Sacrarium enters the battlefield tapped. When Sacrarium enters the battlefield, return up to 1 target creature card with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So this is, okay, interesting. I still think there's something really interesting about a card that's free, but eats one of your land plays, right? It uses up one of your land plays. So this is a 0-mana sorcery that says additional cost, you must lose a land play. That'd be, you know what I'm saying. When Sacrarium enters the battlefield, return up to 1 target creature, mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So directly from the graveyard to the battlefield. Weirdly enough, like, a card like this kind of is like destroy, like, it's kind of like sacrifice a land, also tutor a land. Does that make sense? Because this is your land play for turn, and it didn't cost you a land in hand. I'm overthinking this. I think it's cool. I don't know if I'd ever play this. It's such a minor effect, but, like, sure. You know. And it actually could be kind of fun with things that interact with, like, land destruction. We don't do much with, like, sacrifice your own lands because it's so brutal, but if you had a card like this that had a very minor effect, but it's free, and it eats a land play, and then it doesn't do anything after it hits the field, it only does something that turn, and then you could later interact with it, like, you could play a card that's like, this is very efficient, but you have to sacrifice a land to play it, like, there's, like, some kind of Lotus that does that, I think, like Lotus Fields or something, and so it's like, oh, cool, I missed that land anyway, so now I can double it up. I don't know. I think there's potential here. I think this is actually kind of interesting. You'd need, like, more support if you made a set that used a mechanic like this, but I think it'd be cool. Some feel that the people of Teleria are unfit for a world that contains the living. Mimir the Colossal Mirror is a 4-mana green legendary creature mirror. Urza really wants to make green mirror, it turns out. It is a 2/3. Other mirror creatures you control get +1/+1. For green, and tap, search your library for a mirror permanent card with mana value 3 or less. Put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. I like that. It is the ally, that ability, ally, rebel, and the other one, mercenary. Are all those? Maybe it's just ally and mercenary. You know what I'm saying. There was a series of cards where everything in that creature type could basically tutor for things by paying its cost, and goes directly into the field. So it's like, you draw it and play it for the cost of its cost. From the murky waters of the Zendikar swamp, he stalks the surface, waiting for prey. Moving on. I really need to speed up my card rate. There's like 100 cards to get through. Kazekage, Sun's Avatar, is a 6-mana green and blue legendary creature Avatar. It is a 5/4. It has flash. As long as Kazekage Sun's Avatar is in your opening hand, it gets +1/+1. I don't know what that means. You may put Kazekage Sun's Avatar onto the battlefield from your hand as you cast it. Okay, that's okay. You get an emblem with you can't attack with creatures you control. You can't block with creatures you control, and you can't cast creature spells. So there's no trigger for you getting an emblem, so it doesn't actually function. But I do kind of like the idea of a card with a downside that doesn't go away when it dies, right? Like, no. You played this, you got the benefit of it. If it dies, you still have to eat that downside. And you see that sometimes there's like, I guess I don't think I've ever seen it on a creature. You see it sometimes on sorceries where it's like you do, or for instance, like non-permanents, you cast them and they're like, for the rest of the game, your hand is 3 lower or whatever, right? You have a 4 card max hand size now, which I think is pretty cool. It's a fun mechanic. We didn't really see it used much, but I've seen it like on. I'm thinking of one specific card. So it shall forever light the world with the brilliance of its chosen something. One of its chosen one. I thought I could get through that in time, but I messed it up. Emrakul's Daughter is a 4-mana 4/4, believe me, black zombie horror. Sacrifice Emrakul's Daughter, destroy all creatures that are 1 or more colors. That's kind of cool. I don't know why Emrakul's Daughter is a zombie horror. I don't know. I guess that's sort of like, is this legendary? It's not. I guess the implication here is that, like, Emrakul's Daughter is any, like, people, like, a horror and an Eldrazi are not the same thing, but you have a person, they get, like, manipulated by Emrakul's presence, that person dies, becomes a zombie, but is also twisted by the Eldrazi and is a horror. And that could be anybody, like anybody who dies in that way might count as Emrakul's Daughter. I guess they have to be like a lady. Cool. And then they're black for no good reason, they just are. And then you can sacrifice them to destroy all creatures that are 1 or more colors, which works very well for Emrakul, because Emrakul is colorless. I'm into it, actually. She feeds on life, claiming it from others as the rare chance arises. Then again, mechanically, it's just a 4-mana board wipe, sorcery speed, which is already pretty good. One-sided board wipe, too, if you have mostly colorless. Celestial Guardian is a 2-mana white Angel Spirit Knight. It is a 2/2 with flying. 2-mana 2/2 with flying. Whenever Celestial Guardian blocks or becomes blocked, you may tap that creature. What creature? The creature it is blocking? If you do prevent all combat damage that would be dealt by that creature this turn. I don't actually know what that means. Normally it would say, like, whenever Celestial Guardian blocks or becomes blocked by a creature an opponent controls or something like that, you may tap that creature. But this does not refer to the creature. So it wouldn't... Huh. Interesting. We can assume what it intends to mean, which would be that creature, the one that uses blocked or blocking. So it can kind of chump block forever because it's preventing the combat damage of the creature, right? Cool. In the darkest of times, a celestial guardian descends from the heavens to protect the innocent. Armageddon! XX red. Sorcery. Create X 2/2 red devil creature tokens with haste. Exile them at the beginning of the next end step. That sucks. I mean, it's not the worst. I think that's actually, like... I think there's a card that's actually very similar to this in real Magic, but... You gotta spend, like, 3 mana for a 2/2 that goes away. No, not even 3. 4 mana for a 2/2 that goes away at the end of the turn. Ugh. The Rakdos had been trying to suppress the Church of the Blood Scrivener for years, but with the sudden appearance of Rakdos servants in Sheldor, The order has become impossible to hide. Okay. Baja Blast is a 3-mana red sorcery. Destroy all artifacts, creatures, and lands. You gain 10 life. The bits of Baja Blast are scattered throughout Tajik Empire, where they are studied for their own sake. Okay. That's a brutal brutal board wipe. Dreaded Harbinger is a 4-mana black, that is black, 4/4 horror. When this card enters the battlefield, put a torture counter on each creature you control. Each creature you control gets -2/-2 for each torture counter on it. Interesting. So that's kind of cool in that if you played 2 of these, it would actually like double down. Instead of it being like creatures with, yeah. Instead of like applying only once, it's not like, yeah, okay. Tap. Exile all creatures, artifacts, and artifact creatures you control. Put 1 torture counter on target creature for each torture counter on a permanent destroyed this way. So, here's the thing. Each creature you control gets -2/-2 for each torture counter on it. Torture counters don't inherently do anything. So, putting a torture counter on target creature doesn't do anything. Because A, this is dead, because he got exiled along with all the other creatures. And 2, even if it didn't die, it's only adding the -2 effect to creatures you control. A thing you don't want. This is... I like the idea of this, like, ETB, do something bad, but it's not just like a passive -2 to all creatures you control, so you can keep playing things after it. That's fun. But this is a 4-mana 4/4. An expensive 4-mana, too, because it's all 1 color. Yeah, this is nothing. A symbol of ruin. The Harbinger brings only despair. Samut Bloodhorn is a 9-mana green cat warrior with vigilance. It is an 8/8. When Samut Bloodhorn enters the battlefield, create 2/2/2 green cat warrior creature tokens with vigilance. This also has morph. Oh, this is cool. Okay. Morph for 3 mana. You may cast this card face down as a 2/2 for 3 mana and turn it face up for its morph cost. So either you spend 9 mana for an 8/8 with vigilance and make 2/2/2s. So you have 12 worth of power on the board, 8 of which has vigilance for, what was it, 9? 9 mana. Or you can spend 6 mana in installment plans, which we've talked about earlier. Installment plans are useful, to have it just be an 8 mana, be an 8/8. Also, you get the added benefit of morph, because you can morph at instant speed, so you can, like, declare, you can block with this and then morph it, or have it get blocked and then morph with it. Very scary stuff. This is cool. I think it's way pushed for a morph creature, but it's a fun little, like, do you want the ETB or do you want cheaper stats? And I think that'd be a really fun thing in Magic more. Like, I think you did see this in Morph, but, like, I guess Kicker is kind of like this, right? Where it's like, you can spend, like, 8 mana to do this big effect and have a 4/4 body, or you can spend 4 mana to have a 4/4 body. But I'm thinking more like, it's Kicker, but at 4 mana, it's already an 8/8 or something. 4 mana is too little. But, like, vanilla doesn't... It's really hard to make an interesting vanilla card, right? And that's just because just stats doesn't do enough in Magic. If you consider, like, French vanilla, like flying and trample is also counting like a single keyword, then that you can do. Like, just a big body with trample or a big body with flying is actually good enough, I think, personally. But the idea of saying, hey, if you want to tempo this out just for big stats, do it. And if you don't want to tempo it out for big stats, you can play it later, and it gains, like, an actual ability. It gains an ETB. It has some sort of passive, maybe, that's only true. I guess also, There's a lot of things that have two different costs, right? I was thinking of the prototype mechanic from Brothers War, where you can cast as a smaller creature, and it has this sort of scaling ETB. Those were very cool, or scaling effect. But I don't think we've seen the, like, hey, this is big, even when you play it for cheap. Because honestly, like, is a 4-mana 8/8 vanilla even bad? Or even too good? I think it's probably fine in modern Magic, right? Like, I think so. I don't know. Someone else can figure out the exact numbers, but yeah, that's actually like not unreasonable. So doing this kind of like scaling version of the thing, like prototype or like kicker, except it starts big, is kind of cool. Like, do I want this now, or do I want this in a few turns and it's bigger? Not even bigger. Not bigger, but like, isn't vanilla anymore. I'm going off, but I'm into this. This is cool. As long as you've touched another living creature, you gain resistance to being hit, charmed, frightened, or knocked unconscious. I wish I read that sooner. That's funny. Alara the Master Stitcher is a 4-mana white legendary planeswalker Alara. It starts at 4 loyalty. For +1, choose a creature you control, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and vigilance until end of turn. Okay, that's actually kind of interesting. So we talk about how planeswalkers generally are good if they can protect themselves. This is not creating a token, but it's giving one of your creatures vigilance. So you can attack with that creature and then still block, which can be the blocker that you need to protect Alara. So it's kind of protecting itself in a pseudo way. -2, choose a creature you control that gains flying and lifelink until end of turn. That's cool. Only 1 turn, but that could be a big swing. You can get in for damage that maybe that's lethal. You can get in for damage, heal yourself up, save yourself, protect yourself for a little bit longer. I'm into that. That's cool. And -6, choose a creature you control. It gains double strike, flying, trample, and indestructible until the end of your next turn. Ooh. So I, as a ultimate, as people call them, I don't know if this needs to be until end of turn, but it is kind of interesting that's the intent of the next turn. I think that's just kind of fun. Probably just not having an end, just having it be like 8, put a double strike and flying, trample, and indestructible counters on it would be fine. It is a pretty cheap ultimate. It's only 6 and it starts at 4, but it's also only affecting 1 creature you control. I don't know. I do like this design, though, where it's end of next turn, so you actually still get a decent amount of time with it. You get 2 attacks if you do it in your pre-combat main phase. Yeah. Cool. With each stitch, a new power unfolds. Eldra, Master of Keywords, is a 6-mana white legendary planeswalker Eldra. It has loyalty 5. +1, put a keyword counter on target creature. That creature gains all keywords on creatures you control until end of turn. Oh! What? So presumably keyword counter is not a predefined counter. It is... So, okay, when this said put a keyword counter on target creature, my first thought was, oh, that's like search your library for a creature, right? This is put a counter on it out of any of the keyword counters. Because there are some counters that count as keyword counters. Flying, lifelink, etc. And maybe that's what it means. Maybe it is put your choice of keyword counters on target creature. Hard to say. But it also could just mean put a keyword counter. It's a counter called a keyword counter. And that keyword counter doesn't do anything like most counters in the game. But then it goes on to say that the creature you chose gains all keywords on creatures you control. Now, I don't know if keywords are actually like defined well enough, right? If you look at things like, was it like Ulrich or something? I don't know my real Magic well enough. But there's some cards that are like, they have a whole list where they're like, this gets flying if you control a creature with flying. The same is true for lifelink, indestructible, etc. And it has to name all the keywords. So I assume you can't actually refer to all keywords on creatures you control. That's too ill-defined for the rules of Magic. But we know what it means. It could work as an uncard. Cool. -3, creatures you control gain all keywords on target creature until end of turn. Interesting. So the +1 is you give one creature all the keywords of your other creatures. For -3, all the creatures you control gain the keywords of one of the creatures you control. Or one creature, doesn't have to be you control. Interesting. -7, you get an emblem with creatures you control have all keywords on cards that are in play at the time you gained this emblem, except Indestructible, Flashback, Delve, Kicker, Storm, Shroud, Hexproof, Banding, or Flying. Wow, that's not a lot left. So they can gain Trample, and Haste. Probably some others. Cool! That's a weird ultimate. Eldra is the master of the ever-expanding lexicon of power. Pick it up, Darcy. Pick it up. You're going too slow. Everbloom Shaman. 2 mana, green, 1/1. It is a elf shaman. Everbloom Shaman enters the battlefield with a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the difference between the number of lands you control and the number of turns you've taken this turn. This game, sorry. Interesting. So if you ramp, it gives you a bunch of counters. Or if you miss a bunch of land drops, I kind of love this. What a weird effect. So you don't play it on 2. If you play it on 2, it is just a 1/1. If you play it on 3 and haven't played your land yet for turn, it's a 2/2 for 2, which is not great. If you miss your land drop on 3 and you play it on 4 and then play your land afterwards, presumably, right? You can do it. You can stagger it that way. It is a 3/3 for 2, which is okay. But you can do the opposite direction since you're in green. You could ramp. So you could say, I'm not going to play this on 2. I'm going to instead ramp on 2. Then on 3, I'm going to ramp as well. Then on 4, I'm going to ramp. And then on 5, I'm going to play this, 2 mana 4/4. It is a card you have to keep track of how many turns you've taken, which sucks. Cards like that just shouldn't exist. There's no good way of keeping track of how many turns you've taken. I think they're a cool mechanic. They're just not practical. I do love this design, though. It's just such an interesting, either this is a consolation prize for missing land drops, or it's a reward for ramping. And that's just fun. That's a cool design for a card. Anyway, the Earth's power knows no boundaries, and neither does my devotion to it. Graceful Duskwing is a 1 mana white 1/1 bird. It has flying. When Graceful Duskwing enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life for each creature you control with flying. Cool. In the Twilight's Embrace, the bird of dawn takes flight. That is weird grammar. I'm into it. Neptune's Titan is a 6 mana giant. It is a 7/7. 6 mana 7/7. I'm into that. When Neptune's Giant enters the battlefield, return up to 2 target creatures to their owner's hand. Great. 6 mana 7/7 that bounces 2 of your opponent's things. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, you may draw a card unless that player pays 1. Is that it? Oh. Oh no. Oh no. Is Rhystic Study fairer when it's on a 6 mana body? Stepping over seas, it shapes the very tides beneath its feet. This card's cool, but also probably busted. It's expensive, but it's also better than its expense, right? It's a 6 mana 7/7, not a 7 mana 6/6. Jace the Time Shifted is a 5 mana legendary planeswalker Jace, has loyalty 4. +1, choose target spell. You may cast a copy of that spell without paying its mana cost. So, targeting a spell means targeting it on the stack. Planeswalker abilities operate at sorcery speed, meaning this will never have legal targets. Unless you have an effect that can let you activate this at instant speed, which is maybe possible, but -2. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. You may cast a copy of that permanent without paying its mana cost. Cool. So, copy... Wait. Okay, again, the wording's wrong, but let's just assume we know what it means. Which would be, copy that card. You may cast a copy. You may cast that copy without paying its mana cost. Sure. Cool. So bounce a thing. There's no end time. It just says you may cast a copy. Oh, I guess the you may cast a copy means it would happen right now. It would ignore timing restrictions and give you one opportunity at that moment. Okay, cool. That works. And then -7, exile all spells from all players' graveyards. They're not spells, they're cards, but okay. For each spell exiled this way, you may cast a copy of that spell without paying its mana cost. That's a pretty scary... Yes, that's a very scary ultimate. I kind of like this one. If we assume we just add like choose target spell, you may activate this at instant speed kind of a thing, like as though it had flash. I don't know. Anytime that you could cast an instant, choose target spell, you may cast a copy of that spell without paying its mana cost. If you were able to be like, yeah, you could still only activate Jace once and only on your turn, but you may do it at instant speed so you can copy your own spells or something. That's a very powerful effect. And being able to bounce something and then you get a free copy of it, that's very powerful. And then -7, just replay every spell in every graveyard. That's absolutely busted. Time is my plaything. That's really cool, actually. Joyra of the Gitu is a 4-mana blue and red. Blah. Colors are hard somehow. I don't know how that works. Blue and red, Human Artificer. It's a 2/2. For 2 mana, exile a non-land card from your hand. Put 4 time counters on the exiled card. If it doesn't have suspend, it gains suspend. At the beginning of your upkeep, remove a time counter from that card. When the last is removed, cast it without paying its mana cost. It is a creature. It has haste. Cool. For 2 mana, any spell in your hand can be a 4 suspend card. 2 mana suspend. Every card in your hand has 2 mana suspend 4. Suspend is really hard to assess. 4 turns is actually a lot, it turns out. But also, I like it. I like this card a lot. How much does it cost? 4 mana. By turn 4, this is probably coming down a bit too late, but I like it. Every artifact she thinks of, she eventually creates, sometimes to the dismay of her peers. I think that's very funny, because eventually she'll make it. Joyra the Temporal Navigator is a 4-mana, blue and red, legendary creature, Human Artificer. They are a 3/3. Whenever you cast a historic spell, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card for as long as it remains exiled. Cool, so it's card draw. 5 mana and tap, return all cards exiled with Joyra to their owner's hands. That's not useful. Woo! Unless you can, use them more, from your hand. You're like, oh, I got this thing that only, I exiled a card with Channel, or whatever, I guess. That would be different. I walk 1,000 paths in the blink of an eye, and I have seen everything. Judge of Fate is a, 4-mana white Human Advisor. It is a 2/2. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, choose guilty or innocent. If you chose guilty, target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn. If you chose innocent, create a 1/1 white human token. I kind of love this design. Each player's upkeep, you can -2 something. Blah, 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 blah. Which is very oppressive. Probably too oppressive for being a 4-mana 2/2. But I don't know, maybe not. Or if there's nothing that you want to kill, or nothing that would kill, you make a 1/1. Cool. In the heart of the courtroom, Judge of Fate holds destiny's scales. I like that card a lot. Karneth the Endbringer is a 6-mana black legendary planeswalker Karneth. Starting loyalty 5. The wording of that is different this time. Weird. Interesting. +1. Create 2 2/2 black zombie creature tokens with trample. Very good. -3. Target creature you control gains trample until end of turn. Not super good, but could win you the game. -7. You get an emblem with creatures you control of trample. Very good. Yeah, I mean, this is just like... This is 6 mana, create 2 2/2s. Then the next turn, create another 2 2/2s. So it's kind of like 6 mana, sorcery speed, make 2 2/2s, rebound, kind of, like you get to cast it again, you get another 2 2/2s. So over 2 turns, that's 4 2/2s. Not too shabby for 6 mana. But then also, the next turn, if it's still around and hasn't taken any damage, creatures you have trample for the rest of the game. Seems pretty good. Seems pretty good to me. In his wake, nothing stands. Master of Agonies, or Agony, is a 5-mana black human warlock. It is a 3/6. Black, tap, put a torture counter. Okay, so there's been a series of these cards with torture counters. They were probably made in the same batch. Put a torture counter on target creature. Creatures with torture counters on them get -X/-X for each torture counter on them, where X is the amount of torture counters on them. When a creature with a torture counter on it dies, draw a card. So if you made a bunch of cards that all used torture counters, which we've seen in this, month of Urza's AI Discord, then yeah, they'd actually start doing stuff. Because the torture counters don't inherently do anything themselves, and we saw previous cards where we're like, why would I ever want to put a torture counter on my own stuff? Or on my opponent's thing. It doesn't do anything on my opponent's stuff. But this would add this -X effect. Cool. So you could actually combine it with this Master of Agony to make that previous card we saw actually relevant. Would it be good? I don't know. I don't know if it'd actually be good. But interesting. Actually, is creatures with torture counters on them get -X for each turn counter on them? Is that all part of the tap add a torture counter? So it's like, wait, am I right about this? My opponent has a 4/4. I spend black and tap this. I put a torture counter on it. The creature with the torture counter on it has -X/-X for each torture counter on them. Wait, gets -X/-X for each torture counter on them, where X is the amount. Okay, so one counter gives it -1/-1, but 2 counters would give it -4/-4. Okay, sure. And when a creature with torture counter on it dies, draw a card. I don't know when this last line is supposed to trigger, because it's not like until end of turn, or like when a creature with torture counter on it dies this turn, like from this effect. My understanding is that these are all for the rest of the game effects, which is annoying, but that's Urza's AI, or that's AI magic for you. But what I'm saying is I feel like on the next turn, you gave your 4/4 -1/-1 because it has 1 torture counter on it. The next turn when you activate this, it would still have -1/-1 from the previous time that you activated this, and then it would get an additional -4 for having 2 torture counters on it and getting the minus again. Am I wrong? I might be wrong. This card's confusing. Mechanism of the Unusual is a 5-mana colorless strange. Ooh, another strange. I like those ones. Artifact creature strange. It is a 3/5. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player may choose a color. Each creature that player controls gains the corresponding effect until their next end step. White. All creatures gain... Wait, so you're choosing basically... It's basically choose one of these. The color chosen's irrelevant, except for the fact that it chooses one of these lines. That's very silly, but okay. White, all creatures gain tap, you gain 1 life. All creatures. Each creature that player controls gains the corresponding effect. Wait. Does that mean that if I control 2 creatures, both creatures have the text, all creatures gain tap, gain a life? I guess it doesn't matter how many. Okay, whatever. Blue, all creatures gain tap, draw a card, then discard a card. Black, all creatures gain tap, pay a life, each opponent loses 1 life. Red, all creatures gain tap, this creature deals 1 damage to target creature. Green, all creatures gain tap, add 1 +1/+1 counter to this card. Okay. In its presence, every creature felt an odd but empowering sensation. This is super weird. I need to move on. I'm not going to discuss it. Please talk in the comments. Mechanism of the Unusual is a 5-mana colorless strange. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, this is the same card. I think this is just a refix. It doesn't have the fancy border, but we can still actually see this one actually is a remapping style. Okay, so it's the same thing. It just had the name changed, I guess, and it was cleaned up text a bit. Okay. Cool. Memorial of Glory is a 3-mana legendary artifact. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 3 or more legendary creatures, you gain 5 life and create a 1/1 white soldier creature token. Dominaria celebrates its heroes forever, immortalized in the annals of history. 3 mana, beginning of your upkeep, if you control 3 or more legends, you get a 5 life and a 1/1. That is a big ask for not a huge effect. The 5 life is actually going to add up, but 1/1, Mr. Man is a 5-mana blue strange. It is a 3/3. When Paradoxical Wanderer, okay, so something you can do in this specific AI card generation program is you can go in and you can edit the cards. So I guess the name was changed or the text was changed or something, because probably it was changed. It might have just broken with the AI. AI doesn't always get it right, don't get me wrong, but it's possible this card got edited slightly. So 5 mana, when Mr. Man enters the battlefield, exile another target creature. Return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. Cool, we love a slow flicker. 3/3, and it is a 3/3. Blech. 3 mana tap, permanents you control become the color of your choice until end of turn. This is too complicated for what it actually does. Reality twists and bends in its presence, a living anomaly. So it's a 5 mana 3/3 that blinks something on ETB, and for 3 mana you can make all of your permanents a specific color. Okay, that could actually be relevant. It's all permanents you control, not just a permanent you control. Okay, that's maybe something. Monolith of Mysteries is a 4 mana colorless strange. Another strange. As long as Monolith of Mysteries is on the field, all on the field. I wonder if this is the way it was originally worded, because we're seeing this is another one of these cards that Sile re-rendered. I think that's correct. Maybe they just created it in a different program. I'm not entirely sure what program was used to make this. I wonder if it always said field or if it was truncated to field from battlefield. All creatures gain an ability corresponding to their mana colors. Okay. If they have any, as follows. That is interesting wording. White, this creature gains trample. Blue, this creature gains death touch. Black, this creature gains first strike. Red, this creature gains reach. Green, this creature gains hexproof. Weird, but okay. As long as this is on the battlefield, creatures have an ability corresponding to their mana colors. I feel like this would just say trample, death touch, first strike, reach, and hexproof. Like, this text over here is already explaining that they gain it. You don't need to repeat that they gain it, right? Yeah. Weird and cool. It's universal, like it's a symmetrical effect. Yeah. Sheathed in raw mana, its touch bestows abilities as varied as the lands from which it draws. As in five different abilities. Mystic Oddity is a 4-mana blue 3/2. It is a strange. When Mystic Oddity enters the battlefield, flip a coin. If you win the flip, draw a card. If you lose the flip, return a permanent to its owner's hands. I want to see more cards that flip coins to decide between two effects. Usually, coin flips either do an effect or don't do effect, or do an effect or do a bad effect. Very few of them choose between two good effects, and you just don't know which effect you're getting. Weirdly enough, you do see this with dice sometimes. Usually the cards that you roll dice are like get a minor effect, get a medium effect, get a major effect, depending on how high you're rolling. But sometimes you'll roll a die and it's like odd do this effect, even do this effect. And like that's a coin flip. It's just that the cards were printed to interact with dice rolling instead of being printed to interact with coin flipping. I kind of wonder if we're gonna like see coin flips errated to dice roll. Like, I don't know. I guess it would be weird. But, like, you could errata all coin flips to, like, roll a d2. A 1 is winning the die roll, and a 2 is winning the die roll, a 1 is losing the die roll. And if those were just the rules of Magic, then dice would now interact with... Like, dice and coins could interact with the same mechanics. It just feels weird that they don't interact with each other when they are the same thing. Anyway. But again, it is weird that, like... I mean, you could do a whole overhaul and be like, yes, they're all d6s. Actually, a coin flip is d6s, and odds and evens are success and failure. With even being a success and odds being a failure. That would be I'd be kind of into that. That sounds fun. Yeah. The only problem with something like that is that something like, actually, yeah, Quirk's Thumb is choose one, I believe. A heads or a tails. So, even if you rolled your d6 and you got, a 4 and a 5, you wouldn't be forced to take the 5, which is considered a failure. You could choose. I'm off on a tangent, mystifying and uncanny. Its presence disorients even the most studied minds. Cool, I like this card. Moving on. Opaque Grafted Goat is a 2-mana black, green, and white legendary goat. It is a 2/2. Opaque's thirst for life knows no bounds. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a -1/-1 counter on each creature target opponent controls. Sweet, it's like Slowgurk. Whenever a creature dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Opaque Grafted Goat. That could get huge real fast. Sacrifice a creature. Opaque gains flying until end of turn. Which would put a counter on it, because that would be a creature dying. Opaque's great. We all love Opaque here. Our favorite goat. Overflowing Power is a 4-mana colorless sorcery. Wait, colorless sorcery? Cool. You don't see those very often. Overflowing Power deals damage to each opponent equal to the number of cards in their hand. +1. Each player discards their hand and draws 3 cards. Oh! Cool. So if your opponents have a lot of cards in hand, you can punish them for it by dealing damage to them, and then they have to discard their hand and draw 3. Whereas if you are hellbent, you can just draw 3. Because only opponents take damage anyway. So even if you wanted to, like, wheel your hand, you're not taking damage in the process. This card's cool. Costs 4 mana, though, but still probably worth it, actually. I mean, you're drawing 3 for 4 mana if you're hellbent. That's actually pretty good. The mind is a fragile vessel, easily overwhelmed by an abundance of knowledge. Pain Inflictor, straight to the point, is a 3-mana black vampire assassin. 2 mana, or no, not 2 mana, 2/2. Tap, put a torture counter, another torture counter card, cool. Put a torture counter on target creature. At the beginning of your upkeep, each creature with a torture counter on it deals 1 damage to its controller for each torture counter on it. Okay, I'm starting to get the hang of these cards. They're kind of like oil counters from All Will Be One, where we had all these things that did oil counters, and they were all kind of like but then they interacted with each other in interesting ways. Yeah. You can sort of like add more and more effects, like, this is giving it minus power and also dealing damage to you. Cool. That's fun. Your agony will be my delight. Prism of Strange Realities is a 2-mana colorless artifact. Strange. It's a lot of text. As Prism of Strange Realities is on the stack. Okay, okay, sure. It becomes uncounterable. Sure, why not? So this card can't be countered. Cool. The spell can't be countered. That's fine. When Prism of Strange Realities enters the battlefield, replace all instances of the colors white and green in the text and mana symbols of all spells and cards on the battlefield and in players' hands with black and red, respectively. While Prism of Strange Realities is on the battlefield, all artifacts and artifact creatures have their mana costs converted to colorless. Which I guess would change the color of the creature too, because your colors divide by your cost. The problem with this card, other than just being confusing, is that its ETB replaces all the colors indefinitely. But it's only on ETB. It's not. If it was passively while on the field, this would be manageable. But you can always say, oh, this card that I'm casting, I drew it after this came into the play, onto the battlefield. And there's no way of knowing. If everyone had to reveal their hands or something, that would be interesting. But the artifact bends the fabric of magic itself, transmuting the very essence of mana. Raging Tempest is a 4-mana red elemental. It is a 4/3 with haste. When Raging Tempest enters the battlefield, it deals 3 damage to each opponent. Whenever Raging Tempest attacks, it deals 1 damage to each creature defending player controls. Ooh, that's pretty good. Just destroy all 1/1s. Nice. A Storm of Fury, born from ancient power. Ratzo, Eldrazi Vermin. That's great. It's a rat Eldrazi. That's actually kind of excellent. That's great. Also kind of well done. Like, AI magic. Like, art. I don't usually go, like, good job art. But, like, that's an Eldrazi rat. Like, you nailed it. Alright, 4 mana for a 3/2 with haste. Whenever Ratzo Eldrazi Vermin deals combat damage to a player, exile the top card of that player's library. Cool. It's like Ingest. And you may cast it by paying its mana cost. Its mana value -1. That's not, okay. I know what you mean, but that's not correct. As mana of any color until end of turn. Sure. Apologies. Black. Sacrifice another creature. Ratzo gains indestructible until end of turn. Cool. Born in a twisting maze of reality, Ratzo is a creature of nightmares, blending unspeakable power and insidious cunning. Recursive Grimoire is a 5-mana artifact. It says right here, artifact. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may pay X. If you do, search your library for a card with mana value X and exile it with X time counters on it. It gains suspend if it doesn't have it, then shuffle. So, I don't know why there's a quotation mark here. That's probably just a typo, because again, this was like a re-rendered card, so that's probably just a mistake. Also, this is like a period here. Beginning of your upkeep, you may pay X. Cool. So if I say I'm going to spend 3. If I do, I may search my library for a 3-cost card, and in 3 turns, it'll get cast. So I can tutor anything I want by paying its cost. So it's like It's tutor and cast for its cost, so you're not saving any mana there, except you're suspending it. So it's even worse. The problem with this card is the way that it interacts with suspend cards, interestingly enough. Because suspend cards, there is a series of suspend cards that have no mana cost. And I wish the rules didn't work this way, but the rules of Magic state that if you have no mana cost, you have mana value 0. So you can pay 0 to search your library for a 0 mana spell, and it will have no... I guess that wouldn't work, actually, does it? Because the last time counter will never be removed if it has 0 time counters on it. Huh. So it actually kind of does work in a weird way. If you pay less than 1, the exiled card will never be cast because it was never had its last time counter removed. So instead you'd want to pay 1 and then you get to tutor up a 1-drop and cast the 1-drop for free on your next turn. That's kind of cool. I kind of like that. Beginning of your upkeep, you may pay 1. If you do, next turn, you cast a 1-drop. Woo! And there are some good 1-drops in the game, Some really powerful things. You could tutor up Dark Ritual or something. And then next turn, you just have 3 mana. I guess the thing is, when does Suspend get cast? It's after upkeep. It's during your upkeep, right? At upkeep, remove a time counter. If you've lost the time counter, you cast it immediately. So Dark Ritual would not be super useful during your upkeep, but okay, whatever. Cool card, weird, a lot of things to think about there. Runic Arbiter is a 3-mana white human advisor. It is a 2/2. Players can't search libraries. Boo! Any player may pay 2 for that player to ignore this effect. Okay. Cool. Okay. The, you may pay to ignore is so interesting. Presumably it means, for one instance of searching your library you pay to, which does just kind of mean, I guess that's the way you'd word it, wouldn't you? To ignore this effect, you pay 2. As opposed to, spells cost 2 more to cast. That's very clear, but searching your library, spells that search your library cost 2 more to attack, or I don't know. Yeah, this is cool. Okay. I don't really like tax effects, but cool. Knowledge is a form of power. I will share it, but at my price. Oh, interesting. My price. Celestial Dragon is a 7-mana, white, blue, and red legendary dragon god. 7 mana. 7 mana, 6/6 flying. Whenever Celestial Dragon deals combat damage to a player, it deals that much damage to each creature that player controls. Ouchie. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 3 or more artifacts, exile target permanent. Okay. It's very expensive. I don't know if this is too strong, honestly. It doesn't have haste. It doesn't have flash. You have to control 3 or more artifacts to get its destroy effect. It costs 7 mana. I think this is fair, and I think it's good. It might even be bad, which I love. I love bad cards. Ooh, this one's got a write-up. If you recall, the AI that looks like that, the card generator that looks like that, sometimes gives information about the quote-unquote thought process of the AI. This card, Celestial Dragon, was generated based on the prompt, a card that represents Slifer, the Sky Dragon from Yu-Gi-Oh!, but with better stats, cost, and effect. This card represents an enhanced version of Slifer, the Sky Dragon, a powerful creature from Yu-Gi-Oh! By adapting it into Magic the Gathering, we aim to grant the dragon better stats, increased versatility, and a unique ability tied to artifacts in order to fit within Magic's color pie design. We decided to create Celestial Dragon because we thought it was unfair that dragons in Magic the Gathering didn't have enough powers yet. So we took Slifer the Sky Dragon gave it cooler stats and abilities, and added an artifact-loving twist. Now dragons can reign supreme. Yeah, dragons absolutely useless in Magic. I'm glad they made a good one. Skyweaver Draconic is a 9-mana blue, that's blue, 8/8 legendary dragon god. 9-mana, 8/8. Flying, trample, Skyweaver Draconic Ascendant enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. X is the number of lands you control. So if you don't do any, like, artifact ramp, let's assume you have, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 mana rocks, okay? You are going to have 6 lands at minimum when you cast this. So this is a, 9-mana 14/14 with flying and trample? Whenever you cast a spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Skyweaver Draconic Ascendant. Gets even bigger. And for blue, remove X +1/+1 counters from Skyweaver Draconic Ascendant. Deal damage to target creature or planeswalker equal to the number of +1/+1 counters removed this way. Why didn't it just say X? We've already established that that's what X is going to be. Or are they trying to say that the X is the same X as previously in the text box? I don't think that works that way. I think X is redefined every instance of referring to it, right? So, like, it enters with X. I don't think you have to remove a +1/+1 counter per land you control. Born of the Heavens, forged into chaos of thunder and lightning. Let's see what the AI has to say. The card Skyweaver Draconic Ascendant was based on the prompt, a card that represents Slipher the Sky Dragon from Yu-Gi-Oh!, but with better stats, costs, and effects. Ah, that makes sense. This card captures the essence of Slipher the Sky Dragon from Yu-Gi-Oh! With better stats, costs, and effects. The high casting cost reflects the powerful nature of the dragon, and its synergy with the number of lands you control makes it a rewarding card for decks focused on ramping or control. Who needs a Sky Dragon when you can have a Draconic Ascendant? We took Slipher the Sky Dragon, gave it some extra veins bulging with blue mana, and added a sprinkle of Planeswalker damage. No, you didn't. What? Now, you've got a dragon that'll make Slipher question its own existence. Alright, cool. Nice. Good. Urabos Eternal Cycle is a 6-mana, black and green legendary snake god. It is a 4/4. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may sacrifice another creature. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on Urabos Eternal Cycle and draw a card. Oh, it's like an Ouroboros. Of course. Yeah. Yeah, cool. Got it. Whenever a creature dies, you may pay 3. Such as when you sacrifice another creature. If you do, return this from your graveyard to the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter. Okay, so not to its own trigger. Huh, that's... So it's 6 mana for a 4/4. Each upkeep, you sacrifice a creature and put a counter on this. And you draw a card. That's pretty good. 6 is a lot, but still, that's pretty strong. But instead of paying 6, if this goes into your graveyard, whenever a creature dies, not even you control, just a creature dies, you may pay 3 to return it as a 5/5. And then it still has that upkeep trigger ability. This card's cool and good. In the darkest corners of the world, where entropy reigns supreme, the eternal cycle continues. The card Ouroboros Eternal Cycle was generated based on the prompt, a card based upon Ouroboros. The Ouroboros is a symbol of the cyclical nature of life and death. This card embodies that concept by rewarding you for sacrificing creatures to fuel its growth, and returning from the graveyard to continue the cycle. I actually... kind of they nailed it this time. This is, legit. Due to the budget restraints, we couldn't afford to hire separate artists for the card art and flavor text. So we decided to combine them. The art depicts the Ouroboros while the flavor text tells the story of the card. We call the cost-saving innovation art text. What are you talking about? This is AI generated. Shut up. Get out of here. Swift Judgment is a 3-mana white instant. Destroy target creature. Its controller loses life equal to its toughness. Huh. Alright, 3-mana murder in white, but the controller loses... Oh, wait, and the controller loses life. Dang. Cool. Justice is swift and merciless, stopping evil in its tracks. Sigard, Abyssinian Inquisitor. I like that, Abyssinian. The card Swift Judgment was generated based on the prompt. A card to eliminate on sight any target in any moment. This card was created to represent a quick and decisive form of elimination in the game. It allows the player to eliminate any creature on sight without any chance of the opposing player responding or saving their creature. That is not true. This does not have split second. Split second would do it. If they added split second, that might be useful. The life loss for the creature's controller represents the finality and severity of the elimination. Have you ever encountered a mosquito buzzing around your head? Well, this card is like a gigantic fly swatter that swoops in and smacks that annoying insect out of existence. Just be glad you're not the mosquito! Exclamation point, period. Judge of the Eldrazi is an 8-mana legendary creature Eldrazi horror. It is a 6/6, so it's an 8-mana 6/6. When Judge of the Eldrazi enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices 2 permanents. Okay, that includes you and its permanents, so it can be lands. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player exiles the top 2 cards of their library. If both cards share a converted mana cost, a mana value, you may reveal them and exile all cards with the same mana value from their hand, graveyard, and exile. Who's there? Beginning of each player. Beginning of each player's upkeep, that player exiles the top 2 cards of their library. If both of them have the same mana value, it says you may reveal them. Whatever. Let's ignore that part. You exile 2. If they have the same cost in value, not in pips, you exile all cards with the same value from that player's hand, graveyard, and exile zone. The exiled cards get exiled. They get double exiled. That's cool. That's a pretty cool card. But it's all from... Wait. Oh, their hand grave. So not battlefield. Got it. So they have to reveal their hand, I guess. Doesn't say that, but I guess so. Whenever a player casts their first spell each turn, counter that spell unless its converted mana cost is equal to the number of exiled cards with the same converted mana cost as that spell. Unless its converted mana cost is equal to the number of exiled cards with the same converted mana cost. So, if I want to cast a spell that costs 2 mana value, and there is a card exiled with 2 mana value, the card gets exiled because there isn't one that is matching. There isn't the same number that are matching. Now that card... No, it's countered. It doesn't get exiled. So that card just got countered. If that card got exiled, there'd be 2 2-cost cards in exile, and then the next card that costs 2 would not get countered. Because its mana cost equal to the number of exiled cards with the same mana cost. Then, if I cast another 2-drop on a future turn, it would get countered. All 2-drops that are the first spell you cast each turn, make sure that's clear, it's not all of them, it's just the first spell each turn, will get countered after there is already too many. This is weird. In the Court of the Eldrazi, true judgment awaits. Cool! Judgment of the Eldrazi. It's similar but different. Probably the same prompt. 8 mana creature, Eldrazi, colorless. It's an 8/8. It has flying. When Judgment of the Eldrazi enters the battlefield, exile all other creatures. Whenever a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere, put a +1/+1 counter on Judgment of the Eldrazi. That's cool. It's a board wipe that doesn't actually grow it. It just like wipes the board clean and is an 8/8. And then from then on, when creature cards are put into a graveyard from anywhere, so that includes milling. Very cool. The Ancient Eldrazi judges all life, weighing it against their twisted standards. Pick another pace, pick another pace, pick another pace. Eldrazi Judge. 11 mana, white. This is an 8/8. 11 mana, 8/8 Eldrazi. When Eldrazi Judge enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices all permanents they control and discards their hand. That is just a total Armageddon. It just resets the board, right? Everyone loses their entire hand. Everyone loses all their creatures. Everyone loses all of their lands. Including this thing. It's not all other. Okay. The Eldrazi Judge passes an unyielding sentence that tears through the very fabric of existence. Judge of the Eldrazi. 1 mana. Legendary creature Eldrazi. When Judge of the Eldrazi enters the battlefield, each player exiles all non-land permanents they control. It's a 10/10, by the way. A 1 mana 10/10. Eldrazi's you control of hexproof. Whenever an Eldrazi creature you control attacks, you may pay X. If you do, put X +1/+1 counters on it. Woo! Sweet. Awesome. In the presence of the Judge, all beings become insignificant. The Eldrazi bow in reverence. Judgment of the Eldrazi is a 9 mana white, blue, and black legendary creature Eldrazi. It is a 7/7. It has flying. As an additional cost to cast Judgment of the Eldrazi, sacrifice 3 permanents. When Judgment of the Eldrazi enters the battlefield, destroy all non-Eldrazi creatures. Whenever a player casts an Eldrazi spell, scry X, where X is the confirmed mana cost of that spell. That's you or your opponents. It's any player, not just you. The Ancient Eldrazi Judges decide the fate of all who trespass their realms. Eldrazi Arbiter is a 6 mana blue Eldrazi. It is a 4/4. It has flying. When Eldrazi Arbiter enters the battlefield, each player exiles their hand face down and draws that many cards. As long as Eldrazi Arbiter is on the battlefield, if a player would search their library, that player exiles the top 10 cards of their library instead. That is interesting. Basically, they can't, is what you're saying. Unless you, like, want to mill yourself or something, or I don't think you can force your opponent to search their library. Weird. It silently obeys. No. It silently observes, passing judgment on the actions of all beings beneath its gaze. None can escape its watchful eyes. Eldrazi Arbiter, again, is a 7 mana Eldrazi Judge. Judge as a creature type is kind of funny. 7 mana colorless star. When Eldrazi Arbiter enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices a permanent. Eldrazi Arbiter's power and toughness are each equal to the number of permanents sacrificed this way. Players can't cast spells that share a color with permanents sacrificed by Eldrazi Arbiter. Cool. So if you're playing like a colorless deck, that's fine. Colorless cards do not share a color with colorless cards. That's not how that works. But anyone else is going to get locked out of the game. That's actually a super brutal lock. And it costs 7 mana, so yeah, maybe fair. I don't even know. The Eldrazi respect chaos as much as they respect order. They enforce balance through destruction. Judge of Annihilation is a 9 mana black and red Eldrazi Judge. It is a 7/7. When Judge of Annihilation enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices all permanents they control except for 7. 7 of them, I guess? Cool. You dare to defy the laws of this realm? You shall be judged, and your worlds shall be brought to ruin. Infernal Cataclysm is a 6 mana red sorcery. Infernal Cataclysm deals X damage to each creature and each player, where X is the number of mountains you control. If I recall correctly, whatever prompt was used for this one, the prompt inputter made a whole bunch of them and shared a whole bunch of them on the Discord. I saved one of them. Maybe 2. Because they were all very much the same effect. Infernal Cataclysm deals X damage to each creature and each player, X the number of mountains you control. I think that's a fun effect. The Fiery Inferno swallowed everything in its path, leaving only ash and ruin. Inferno Cascade is a 5 mana red sorcery. Inferno Cascade deals X damage to each creature and each player, where X is the number of lands you control. If you control 5 or more mountains, Inferno Cascade deals double the damage instead. Yes, so this was the other one. X to each creature. Same, but instead of it being lands or mountains, it's lands. But if you have 5 or more mountains, double that damage. I think that's really cool. That seems like a fun design. Inferno Titan is a 6-mana red giant. It is a 6/6 Inferno Titan. Enters the battlefield with 4+1/+1 counters on it. Red and tap. Inferno Titan deals 3 damage to any target. Whenever Inferno Titan attacks, it deals 3 damage to each opponent and each planeswalker they control. Its breath sets your soul on fire. Its footsteps shake the foundations of the world. Eruptive Pyromancer is a 3-mana red human wizard. It is a 2/2. When Eruptive Pyromancer enters the battlefield, it deals X damage to any target. X is the number of mountains you control. So, yes, bunch of these effects. Believe me, there were more that I did not include. The eruption from within burns brighter than the volcanic inferno. Emissary of Cataclysm is a 5-mana red elemental. It is a 4/4. When Emissary of Cataclysm enters the battlefield, it deals X damage to each creature and each player, where X is equal to 3 plus the mana spent to cast Emissary of Cataclysm. So 8. It's 8. Whenever a land is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, untap Emissary of Cataclysm. Interesting. Weird effect. The Fiery Messenger of Destruction leaves a trail of scorched earth behind. Hogak, King of the Necropolis, is a 7-mana black and green legendary zombie god. It is an 8/8. Haste, Menace, Hogak, King of the Necropolis, costs 1 less to cast for each creature card in your graveyard. When Hogak enters the battlefield, exile up to 3 target creature cards from your graveyard. For each card exiled this way, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token, sacrifice another creature, regenerate Hogak. So this is 7 mana, but it costs 1 less for each creature in your graveyard. So it could cost as little as 2. It is an 8/8. It has haste. It has menace. And you exile creature cards from your graveyard to create a number of 2/2s. You then also can sack maybe one of those 2/2s to regenerate this so it doesn't die permanently. I like this card a lot. It's probably too good, but also just like, it's a very fun, like, graveyard matters. You then have regenerate. I love regenerate, even though it's awkward and people don't like it. I think it's cool. Very, very fun. The Necropolis arises, and its king hungers for souls. Luffy, Pirate King Ascendant. I think this one was made in the same batch that we saw earlier. I don't know why they're not together. I think, generally speaking, these are sorted, like, I don't know why they aren't together. Luffy, Pirate King Ascendant is a 3-mana 1/1 legendary creature human pirate. Once again, it's a level up card. Yeah, I don't know why this is not with the other ones. Oh well. Level up 3. 3 colorless, put a level counter on this. Level up only as a sorcery. Hey! Yeah, look at that. It actually has the reminder text this time. Levels 2 to 3, which is important to remember that it does not start at level 1. You'd have to spend 6 mana before it hits level 2. In addition to its actual cost as a 3 mana. Levels 2 to 3, it is a 3/3. Luffy gains first strike and can't be blocked except for 2 or more creatures. Level 4 is a 4/4. Luffy gains double strike. Now, the way this is worded, I don't know whether or not these are supposed to stack. Again, actual level up, I think it just repeats all the text. But this says gains as if it happens when it levels up or something, so then it would last forever, but whatever. Luffy gains double strike, and then level 5 plus 5/5. Luffy gains indestructible trample, and whenever Luffy deals combat damage to a player, it deals that much damage to each creature that player controls. This ability can't be countered, and damage dealt can't be prevented. With each step towards his dream, Luffy becomes more like a force of nature than a man. Sora, Keyblade Master. That's our second Sora. 5 mana, white, blue, and red for a legendary human warrior 3/3. It is a first strike vigilance, and whenever Sora attacks, you may exile target creature an opponent controls. If you do, put a battle counter on Sora. Sora gets +1/+1 for each battle counter on it. Why does it not just get a +1/+1 counter? No idea. Don't worry about it. 3 mana, Sora gains indestructible until end of turn. I guess the one thing you could say is that if this had a +1/+1 counter and a battle counter, and then you proliferated, it would get +1 battle counter and +1/+1 counter for +2 total. So that's something. It's not like 100% irrelevant. It's just usually irrelevant. Anyway, 3 mana Sora gains indestructible. That's fun. With a heart full of courage and a Keyblade in hand, Sora fights to defend the worlds from darkness. That's true. Arranged with is a 9 mana white, blue, and black enchantment. At the beginning of each upkeep, choose a card type. Each opponent reveals their hand and exiles all cards of the chosen type. In the game of fate, the rules can be rearranged. It's kind of cool. Every upkeep, not just the beginning of your upkeep, just every upkeep, you choose a card type. So, yeah, that's kind of brutal. Because it's like, alright, cool, it's your turn. Exile all your lands. Okay, it's my turn. Exile all your creatures. Okay, it's your turn. Exile all your sorceries. Okay, it's my turn. Exile all your artifacts. Like, that's brutal. That's super brutal. Also, after the first one, you see their hand, so you know what's in their hand to choose the best one for the after the first time. It is 9 mana, actually. Maybe this is fine. Now that I think about it, it's 9 mana. If you can somehow cheat out an enchantment, which is hard, like, there's not a lot that does that. Okay. Yeah. Verdant Behemoth. For green, that is 6 green pips. You get an 8/8. No, it's an 8/10, actually. It is a behemoth. It is an 8/10. Verdant Behemoth enters the battlefield with a -1/-1 counter on it for each green land you control. Fun fact, that's 0. Lands don't have mana, a color. Lands are colorless. It probably means lands that produce green mana. Or forest or something. If that's the case, this is useless. This is already 6 green pips for an 8/10. We've seen Gigantosaur. We know that just a vanilla, like, 8/8 for 4 isn't actually that good. When it's all one color. If it was, like, colorless, that'd be different. But when it's all green, that's really restrictive. The land thrives as it feeds upon the life force of the behemoth. Shrek, Ogre of the Swamp. Okay. Alright, sure. 5 mana, green, legendary creature, Ogre. It is a 5/5. When Shrek, Ogre of the Swamp enters the battlefield, create a legendary 2/2 green donkey. Okay, that's kind of cute, actually. Creature token named Donkey. It would be named anyway. That's how tokens work, but sure. With this creature gains +2/+2 as long as it's attacking alongside Shrek, Ogre of the Swamp. Okay, that's actually kind of cute. I don't know if attacking alongside is a term recognizable, but you know what that means. I know what that means. I kind of like this. I didn't expect to like this. Yeah, it's a 5 mana 5/5. That ETB makes a 2/2. And then, if both of them attack together, you have a 5/5 and a 4/4. That's fun. It is weird that it's Ogre of the Swamp and it's green, but whatever. Shrek is green, so that does check out. For 4 mana and exile a black card from your graveyard, Shrek, Ogre of the Swamp gets +4/+4 until end of turn. That's a lot. It's 4 mana for +4/+4. And you gotta pay it all at once. You can't just... It's not like Fire Breathing where you can just be like, I'm gonna pay 2 today. I'm gonna pay 3 today. I'm gonna pay, 6 today. You have to pay 4 or 8 or 12. But that could be pretty powerful. And it does encourage you to be playing black as well as green, making it appropriately an Ogre of the Swamp. Ogres are like onions. Shrek. That actually brings us to the end of our Discord review for this month. Thank you for joining me. That was exhausting. It was a big waffle and wobble, and there was lots of sound in the background. I hope you enjoyed the bell tower and the train and the cars. I hope you enjoyed those. I hope those picked up. I have been DarcyBits. This has been the Creations of Urza's AI's Discord. You can find the Discord either in the description box on YouTube or on Urzas.ai. Urza's AI is a place where you can generate your own magic cards. There are other AI generation sites that if you go to the Discord, you can talk with like-minded individuals who will share those sites with you as well. I don't have a list here. I'll probably include some in the description, but you know. Either way, please check out the Discord. It is getting revamped by Sile, who we saw making some of these cards, or, you know, putting together the display of some of these cards. For what that works. I don't know how to word that in a more, you know, inclusive way. You know what I'm saying. And then, yeah, the place is getting sort of reworked. There's a new structure for sharing cards, spots for cards that were generated by AI, cards that have been sort of tweaked since then, things that are more closer to custom cards. It's a very cool, very robust Discord at this point. So I'm looking forward to doing this again next month. And, ooh, right on time. There goes the clock tower. Don't know if you can hear that. But with that, have a very good night. And I will see you next time. For some reason, that didn't feel like a smooth outro. Like, I felt like I needed to say one more word, but I already said bye, so... Bye!